HYBE Corporation, okay, is taking over the goddamn world. Yeah. They are buying up everything that exists in the music industry, and they've been coming in strong for the last few years. They've been making their entry into the United States. This is the company that's originally responsible for acts like BTS, whole bunch of massive Korean hits, Korean acts. And since early 2020, they are making acquisitions at an unprecedented rate and literally just taking over everything. Like from Big Machine to the companies that are now Atlas Music Group.
Just for context for everyone, Big Machine is the label that owned or owns Taylor Swift's catalog.
Yes. And came in with Atlas, all these little companies that are buying, I take that back, all these massive companies that are purchasing up all these publishing catalogs on behalf of these artists, the Justin Biebers of the world, the Justin Timberlakes of the world, and have just recently purchased QC, Quality Control, which is the likes of Lil Baby, City Girls, Lil Yachty, Cardi B, that they have under management, all this stuff. They're now in process of purchasing massive Latin labels and literally making themselves part of the big three, which is now going to be the big four, right? And I've never seen anything like it. It's almost as if they're coming in with like an unlimited backing, an unlimited pit of funding. And this is a company that, mind you, in 2007, when it was known as Big Hits, was down to their last 4 employees and on the verge of bankruptcy. So that has to be one of the greatest turnarounds, quite possibly ever. And they're positioning themselves in a way where now the big 3 labels have been well aware of this entry that's been happening. So they're now working out partnership deals where Geffen has now come into tandem with HYBE. They finished their auditions last year for a whole new girl group that they want to do. And you're starting to see the pieces take shape of this massive entry into the space. It's insane.
Do we know who the brains trust is behind this entity?
Well, they have a bunch of different subsidiaries. So they have like HYBE America, and then they have the HYBE Corporation, which like has their founder and CEO and whatnot. And there's like 3 or 4 key players on the board of who it is.
This isn't a collection of previous key players in any of the major 3.
No.
This is a brand new set of
Yes. And they've positioned themselves with key players in the industry. Like they're basically who came in and acquired and worked in tandem with Scooter Braun with the acquisitions of all those catalogs, then upsold that. Yeah. They've positioned themselves and aligned themselves strategically with people in the industry after making their entry. Yeah. And it was the perfect alignment of where they recognize the resource, the people in the industry recognize the resource of an unlimited cash cow that can help them acquire these massive catalogs. And now they've positioned themselves as like, unlike anything I've ever seen. I've never seen someone come into the industry, which we know is so gatekept, so heavily and so formidable, and position themselves as such a massive player that they can't be ignored now. It's quite possibly the craziest thing I've ever seen.
And I've never seen such a slow play collection of... They didn't decide to take over pure publishing and then go to the next thing. They've kind of collected pieces in all verticals on the ground level and then slowly moved their way up across the broad spectrum of the industry. And I think catalog acquisition is such an interesting play because no one thinks of that as an active move. They think of it as a passive move.
Absolutely.
They think of it as like, you're just buying that to sit on it. You know you'll make your money back on a 30-year yield. Like, you're fine, right? So I think there's like this really smart outside perspective on it that's still got some very heavy music industry people that understand how to move and understand what decisions and what moves will spark a concern at one of the big 3 and waiting till it's too late to do anything. Like they didn't decide, you know what, we're just going to buy catalog. Then we're just going to buy management. Then we're just going to buy... Now they've just reached this point and then it just feels like the last 6 months they've gone, all right, it's time to let everyone know we're here. Bang.
Bang.
You know, and just shot upwards.
Yeah, it was militant. And their approach was 100%. Militant.
I haven't seen a move like that in a minute.
No, and multi-genreal approach. Like they're not just sticking to one thing. Like I mentioned that they're now in the talks or already have acquired a massive label for Latin distribution. Like you're talking about a foreign entity that has come in and established themselves as a major player in every division of the music industry.
Yeah, and this is a complete brain fart. I have no backing behind this, and I don't even know what I'm going to say is true or untrue.
Shoot it.
There is, and I've had this thing for the last 18 months, 2 years. Since I started leveraging and using AI for my own personal gain, I've realized the power of owning your digital twin. And I've realized this importance around establishing it. And there's a video on my Instagram where I first realized this, and I had this like realization after looking over a label agreement of a friend of mine, and inside it was the ability to leverage the likeness of that scenario. And one of the things that I've noticed with how they've acquired catalog is they've acquired catalog. They're not on licensing agreements.
Oh no, it's full buyout.
It's full buyout.
Yeah.
So at what point are you able to make an unlimited amount of remixes?
Yeah.
Of Justin Bieber, Little Baby?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to do features between those people that would have never been able to be done? You've now got a Justin Bieber and a Michael Jackson feature. Like when you cross-generate and you figure out how AI has this ability to bring people back to life musically and pair them with like, what does Metro Boomin, Justin Bieber, and Michael Jackson sound like?
Yeah. And it'll do it in 30 seconds.
And it'll do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, identifying all the key points of their hits previously, and it doesn't
and then
miss.
Think of a streaming platform
that
doesn't feed you music that is already existing.
Yeah.
It feeds you custom created music based off
it's a good idea.
Your favorite artists across the spectrum.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
100%.
Might
Watch
have to
it,
cut
everybody.
That. It's a great idea.
Because now you've got this streaming music situation that's like done based off a compute power and creative essence, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that I've been thinking a lot about. So there's an AI topic, and we didn't plan on talking about this today. I'm going down a rabbit hole right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm ready.
I think there's this real interesting... Everyone says AI-created music is cheating. I don't know if anyone's been on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit there that back in the day people would have classed as cheating.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right?
Melodyne, auto-tune, pitch correction, reverb, FX, dynamics, the whole nine.
What is creative freedom and what is creative control?
Yeah.
And what is a creative process?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to listen to BB King and take inspiration from BB King and apply that to a pop song?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People do that manually all the time, right? So what is the difference between LLM doing that and a human doing that?
Yeah.
The obvious difference is it feels like it's cheating.
Yeah. In some ways, because it's not socially acceptable yet.
100%.
Yeah.
But eventually it will become socially acceptable because the consumer will see the benefit in hearing what BB King sounds like with Little Baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this sort of concept of like time not being a restriction or passages of history not being siloed. We're going to be the first music listening generation that doesn't go, oh, the 70s was my jam. The 70s is going to be mixed with the 90s, is going to be mixed, like it's all just going to be blurred together, not just in one playlist, but in one song.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a constant stream of conscious. And I think there's something really, really interesting in the consumption of music when we move more and more towards an algorithmic based structure. We know more about listening behaviors now because of the way we consume music and the way platforms collect data than ever before. So the platform knows best on what to feed us.
Yeah, and I think that's been the case for quite a while without people being quite aware of that, because 100%. There's been whispers in the wind, so to say, through the years of me being in the industry of this like magical hitbox that the industry, the hierarchy used to use, right? And essentially one of the original examples of what I had heard through the grapevine was the Black Eyed Peas I Got a Feeling record, which there was essentially a pre-AI algorithm that they had that they would enter these songs into that would give them a hit score of what the potential of the record actually was.
Same thing about Happy. For a Williams.
Yeah, which was accidentally written, by the way. That's a whole other interesting story. But essentially they would be assigned a hit score and give them the validity of how well like this record could actually perform in the open market. So it's not like they haven't been utilizing these services for themselves. In regards to the consumer and actually delivering these AI hits to them, we already know that the minute that you had that whole ghostwriting situation that popped up with that guy who called himself the ghostwriter and he did the Drake and Weekend thing that popped off like last year, and then they had to remove it off of Spotify because it did like 7 million streams in its first day, and there's no way that they're going to get away with that copyright, right? Because the language hadn't been established or defined yet. But it's not like they haven't curated and formulated these hits. I'm already under the impression that artists are already using it. Like Kanye got called out for it on his last project, on the Vultures project, where people essentially called out the fact that they think Kanye used AI vocals of himself to like deliver records that were just like way too smooth sounding or a different delivery than what he had previously come with. But who ultimately gives a shit? There's going to be the culture vultures who always feed into it and look into it, and they're like, there has to be some authenticity and this and that. But we live in the day and age of like Facetune and filters and auto tune and pitch correction across every spectrum of work, right? And it's just a matter of time before it's socially acceptable. And then they just open up the floodgates for 15 more Tupac albums that are AI generated or the new Michael Jackson songs. And when the music is compelling and it's good and it's a smash, I think that we're going to see that wither away in regards to like the hesitation for it to be acceptable. And then it's going to become like a mass adaptation.
And I think to pull it back to the HYBE thing, like, at the end of the day, whenever capital gets deployed at a higher than normal clip, you better believe that there's more than a 3% return on the other side.
Oh my God.
So
especially when you're talking about hundreds of millions.
They're not deploying this capital for catalog. Like the original sort of catalog companies that came out that were just looking to acquire capital, they were just looking for a 3 to 5% return.
Yeah.
Right. That was their game.
Yeah.
Right. This capital is being deployed so fucking quickly. And it's such a vicious speed. It knows something's coming and it has to acquire before that's clear to everybody what's happening. And I can't think of anything else, even on my 17-hour drive up here today. I couldn't think of anything else that would be a reason for that visceral deployment of capital aside from some form of delivery mechanism to future consumers under a different pay structure.
Of course.
You know, and if they're able to deploy that capital to buy that catalog, they're probably sitting there on a platform already, ready to go.
Yeah.
And then they release this platform to the world. It becomes a new form of streaming.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the speed of capital deployment is done with a larger play in mind.
Absolutely.
And I might be wrong on what that play is, but I don't think I'm wrong on there being a play bigger than capital collection.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think there's a giant elephant in the room that people don't want to touch on when they discuss these catalog acquisitions, because the unfortunate truth is, when is the catalog of an artist deemed most valuable? Is when they're no longer here, right? And they can't create any more iterations of that art. So you see how it works in regards to an artist like Michael Jackson, who the estate tells you that he's $400 million in debt. The estate is $400 million in debt in the year that he passes away. In one calendar year after that, not only do they wipe out that debt, but it's a $700 million surplus, right? Yeah. And that's like the conversation that people want to tiptoe around, because it's uncomfortable to talk about the acquisition of catalogs for people that they basically are just waiting for the expiration date, and then they could monetize that catalog. Like, God rest his soul, even in regards to Liam Payne a couple weeks ago, One Direction had their largest streaming day in history the day that he passed away. Their largest streaming day in history. And you're talking about a band, a group of people that at one point were like the modern day NSYNC of our generation, even bigger. They were the One Direction. It wasn't a wrong direction. Yeah, exactly. You know, it was the One Direction. And we're talking about the lowest hanging fruit of that spectrum was 20, 30 million followers for an individual in that group. So they had a massive, rabid fan base that the day that he passed away, they had their largest stream uptick, right? There's only one beneficiary to all that. it goes back to the hierarchy and the establishment of who actually owns that output. So it's the uncomfortable truth around a situation. And when it becomes deemed socially acceptable for them to be able to put out that music, and once it's good enough to where they know that it's undeniable, like, have you been aware of like that clip that's been going around with Justin Bieber, who, by the way, people aren't aware of what catalog acquisition means. Every song that Justin Bieber released prior to December 30th, 2021, he no longer collects on and never will collect on ever again. Yeah. And yes, he got $200 million up front for it, but you're giving away your life's work up until that point, right? So to recreate that prowess and exposure and success, that's not easy, right? 100%. So it's one of those things where as soon as it's deemed socially acceptable, which I was about to touch on with the Justin Bieber clip that's going viral, where it's like him singing about like being at like a Diddy party, you know? And like, he's like, I sold my soul for a new Ferrari and whatnot. Do you know how many people, I maybe had 6 or 7 different individuals who sent me that clip asking me if it was a real song. And then I had one of them go back and forth with me on an argument, trying to convince me that it was real.
We talked about in the last episode.
And I was like, this is not a real song. Like, this is not Justin Bieber's song. Like, trust me, straight from the source, this is not Justin Bieber's song. Like, we're almost there, man.
Well, we are. And I think the interesting thing on Justin Bieber, before we move on to another topic, he's now suing his business manager for a lot of money. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it just goes to show, like, I don't know many people that have sold that catalog as young as he was. Yeah, 29. That doesn't feel some kind of way about it. Yeah. You know, and I think you could make some conspiracy theories on why he sold it, maybe to rid the energy that it came with and to start again, or whatever the reasoning was. Yeah. But I think that ultimately there's so much of your energy that goes into what he created there, and you forget the value of that till it's gone. And now he's obviously sitting there like, well, I regret that call. Someone's going to fucking pay for it. 100%. And like when you know, there's a yes men situation. This is the last thing we'll touch on before we jump. There's a yes men situation that develops around these people. And like when he was brought into this industry from such a young age and leaned on so many people to guide him the right way, I understand the empowerment that you want to place on someone with allowing them to be open-handed with their spending. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you position someone for success for the time that they're 40, 50, 60 years old, so they don't have to keep chasing bags and running around on stage, and he could go be a full-time dad, go be what it is. Being the amazing spirit and person that he is, like, it's that type of energy around him that he depended on for people to lead him in the right direction. And it's like, yes, well, he there's a chance that he's a little frivolous with his spending, and he's Justin fucking Bieber, bro. He has a right to be, right? Like, if the dude wants to fucking make sure that he flies private so he doesn't get harassed for 7 hours on a flight or whatever, that's what he's entitled to. He has earned that. But it's up to the people around him to make sure that they position him for success and put him in places where they make him aware of the spending prowess and what is actually feasible and what's logical, and then position the additional capital to make sure that you put it in places to where the money is earning money, and off of that passive asset income, live your life and do what you want. But we wish him all the best, you know? Definitely. The last thing is I know his business management company, not the people personally, but it's a credible business. Yeah. They've done some good work. Yeah. You know, but I think everyone underestimates the tax you pay being Justin Bieber. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when you go to order that private jet, if anything is like remotely tied back to that name, there's a tax associated. Of course. And so I think that's probably more so what this comes down to. I think those last minute calls to get those last minute things to keep him safe. Yeah. I think that just cost more than it would ordinarily sometimes. And it adds up, bro. And it adds up. $200 million when you're moving like that. Yeah. It's not that much money. No, man. When you're flying private all around the world and it's a few $100,000 at a time every which way, and then the cost of whatever it is for you and spending and whatnot, like that shit dwindles and dwindles quick, you know? Facts. We ourselves are aware of it, how quickly what you think is big money just goes if you're not aware of it. Like 100%. I've seen millions of dollars whittle away just because of,
you think that it's just continuously going to replenish. And then you turn around and you ask yourself, like, fuck, should I have really dropped fucking that much money on this situation or this and that?
Continuously replenish when you are in the music.
Yeah.
But when you no longer do, and you take that one stop.
Yeah.
When you stop having the ability to go around the Monopoly board and pass go, when you decide to stay in the one place and you stop to continue that motion, I can just understand how that would catch up with you quickly.
Yeah.
But speaking of dwindling finances, Starbucks.
Yeah, like I'm not surprised that I'm actually surprised that my wife's 5 matcha a week habit hasn't upheld their sales stream. You know, like I literally should be a minority owner of Starbucks at this point, right?
100%.
But their sales have plummeted. Their in-store sales year over year have gone down over 10%. They've posted declining revenue for 3 quarters in a row, so much so that they've suspended the entire fiscal output and prediction for 2025, which is not a good sign. No. And I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware, but they brought over the CEO from Chipotle. Yep. They gave him a crazy pay package and setup.
Arguably one of the biggest pay packages
ever. And he lives in Costa Mesa in Orange County, which is a very beautiful place to live, right? And they created an arrangement with him where the Starbucks offices, which are in Seattle, they send him a private jet that brings him there like once a week. He only has to check into the office once a week. And then they fly him back home to his place in Costa Mesa, and he's allowed to work remotely. And mind you, he did an incredible job with Chipotle after the food poisoning outbreak happened. And they had one of, I think it was actually regarded as the largest marketing expense for a food company or a company ever. They basically spent like $100 million in sending out a coupon for a free burrito to every household in America. Like, come back and give us a chance, right? Yeah. Neg and I, my wife and I, we hadn't gone for a minute. We're like, oh, we're taking advantage of free burrito. We're walking 100%. And we're doing it, you know? Yeah. And they were able to rebound heavily. And a fun fact about Chipotle is McDonald's was actually one of the early investors into Chipotle, which is very interesting. But they sold out before any of the hype. But essentially, they brought over the CEO from Chipotle to try and rectify this situation. And now their agenda is to shave off a ton of menu items because they think it's become too complicated. Like people can literally make a 30 list custom order of a matcha that they want or a latte that they want. Like, give me half pump of this, give me a quarter pump of this, sprinkle a little bit of this salt in there, whatever. Like, it's just ridiculous, right? And they're trying to reduce their prices to uptick sales. And I think it's in a really interesting position that a company as dominant as Starbucks, which is actually one of the largest franchises in the world, period, based on locations, with Subway and McDonald's sharing in that. We saw Subway had an exit not too long ago where they sold out for like 11, 12 billion, you know? So I'm very curious to see what this does.
I am fascinated by Starbucks. I think it's the most entertaining business existing right now. I think it has 2 major challenges. And I think that they've made a very interesting decision with their hire. So basically, whenever a business is looking for a senior leadership change, they have 2 choices. They hire internally or they hire externally. Traditionally, the way that would work would be you would hire internally for operational shifts because often the CEO is not as aware and tapped in to what is required operationally as someone working within the business. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense if you have an operational issue, which they have, on how to fix that. That information and that wherewithal and the ability for the rest of the team to trust and to appoint that leader is more likely to happen internally. The reason why you would hire an external person is because you have a storyline issue. Your brand or your brand story or your brand messaging is misaligned. They have both problems. Starbucks initially started and launched into America at a speed no one anticipated because it was a European alternative that existed in America. And it was brought here as this opportunity to work and coffee, multiple coffees, chill, relax, like it was this like living room, second home style concept. And then COVID happened. And then they opened up app orders. And they took away the personal touch from the company.
Wow.
They took away the Wi-Fi access from the company. They took away the open toilets from the company. And they applied this grind mentality to a store that operationally can't exist with the structure they're running under now. Normally, with a place like that, from a behavioral science standpoint, you have a line for a fucking reason. The line reaches a natural point where people psychologically won't get in it. And that line normally is like 2 people past the door. You have 2 people past the door. You sit outside of Starbucks, you'll see that line will never get longer than that 2 people past the door because people know it's too long for me. So the natural line is the determining factor behind the barista able to process the coffees. And that normally they work in conjunction with each other. There's a line and then there's the ability to deliver the order. When you have app orders at 8:30 in the morning, there is no line anymore. There is no cutting of that process. And there's no natural order of things. And you end up with this abundance of orders at 8:30 in the morning the barista can't handle, the store can't handle because it's not built for that. It was built for lounging. It wasn't built for efficiency.
Wow, that's great insight.
Right? It wasn't built as a kiosk. Like it was not a churn and burn back of house. It was a front of house. And when you take that away, you lose everything that makes Starbucks. And you end up being a really shitty product. And that's where we stand right now. The sprinkles have destroyed the business, but ultimately they have 2 major issues, and you can't solve 2 things at once. You have a systems issue, and you have a story issue. You're no longer living up to why you existed in the first place, so you need an external CEO to rewrite that story. And you also have a systems and processes issue where you should have hired an internal operator to be able to head that up. What Starbucks did was they hired a really good operator somewhere else who was very, very good at systems and processes. The way he managed to turn Chipotle into a systematic machine is very impressive. But he's not a storyteller. So you've got this issue right now where you have a CEO that people internally feel like has special treatment, coming into an engine that is lost its brand story, lost its reason for being, not delivering on its message, and has a systems issue that is severely flawed. So you have to almost do a full rehaul on that company to get it back to where it is.
Yeah.
If I was to make a guess on if they can do that, it would be a hard fucking no.
Yeah.
Like if I was a betting man and I was considering where to put my money, it would not be in Starbucks.
Yeah.
It has only reason why this triggered in me is I was at Starbucks the other day and there's just this 100 orders on this pickup counter that wasn't built for that. The pickup counter was not built for that. Like they have to take every single store in America, close it down for 6 months, and relay it out. They have to apply behavioral science, a pickup counter, a drop-off, an in-store experience, a lounge. They have to redesign the whole place based on the brand message and brand story that they have to start to tell.
Yeah.
And that's the only way something's going to change.
Wow, their convenience that they implemented ended up being the biggest detriment to their business, essentially, with the app pickup and whatnot.
Comes at a cost.
Whatever. Convenience comes at a cost. Starbucks, if you're listening, you could throw me $20 million and my boy $100 million. He'll come fix your shit up. But give me a DM. No, that's very insightful. You just educated me on a lot of stuff because you understand a different approach and perspective of it because you've been in that realm of marketing yourself. You've understood like all the crazy shit I always joke with you on with like the heat mapping and department stores and all that crazy shit.
And I've also been the guy that's brought in to fix the store.
Yeah.
The behavioral science, people are very, very monkey brain.
Yeah.
People really don't. You make way less decisions than you think you do.
Yeah.
And that's like you think you're in complete control, but you don't get in that line, not because of a choice you made, but your choice your subconscious made.
Absolutely.
And that leads your thinking. That's your first thought. That's your baseline compass.
Yeah.
And you make more decisions like that than you think.
Yeah.
And when a business is operating inside of that monkey brain, that's when you win.
Yeah.
When the first instinct switch is yes, those businesses win.
Yeah.
When when you're neglecting that side of someone's brain, you're destined to lose. And right now they're doing both badly.
Yeah. I mean, we know that over the last 100 years, the world's most valuable company has continuously changed. Like it's gone from like the AT&Ts of the world to IBM to, well, Microsoft still stays in the loop because they just have the stranglehold. But essentially, it changes hands every 15 to 20 years. Domination, market caps, etc. They fluctuate. They go up and down. Acquisitions happen. There's crazy instances of Yahoo denying $50 billion plus deals and then selling out for $4 billion just because they didn't time their exit correctly. So it's only a matter of time before it turns over, right? So you can't stay on top forever. That's just not the manner in which things work. Like, we're starting to recognize that even with Apple. We talk about it all the time. Apple is starting to lose its grip in regards to that impenetrable aura that they had around them in regards to you can't shake these guys. Yeah. Like, everybody is on the upgrade cycle. Everything is what it is. Do you think Starbucks ultimately gets replaced in a way? Is it like a slow burnout type situation?
I think it's happening already. I think it's.
You think the little mom and pop shops are going to take hold again?
Or? I think it's the very strategic investment money. Like, there's a company in Berlin, Lap Coffee. Shout out Ralph.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Ralph. Shout out Ralph.
He's just received a shitload of investment, popping up new locations all the time, and it's just a hole-in-the-wall coffee shop. They come in about $2 underneath everyone else for the baseline product of an espresso. Mm-hmm. They know exactly what they are.
And they have that homey feeling to it?
Very small, very in and out transactional, but they've
built the business off that model.
100%, but they've built, like, that's where you start your run club. Mm-hmm. They've built the community outside of the coffee shop, but the coffee shop itself is a in and out transitional game. Mm-hmm. It's low cost transitional game, no premium beans that are from some part of the Swiss Alps that you can't access. They don't care.
Or even verify.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They've just done a very good job. So I think investment money is going to go into creating a more of a niche output. Mm-hmm. So you'll have the heavily lounge, like private club working place, a mix between WeWork and Starbucks. Mm-hmm. There'll be something like that where you pay for the access and the ability to be able to be private.
Epic.
And then you have the other side, which is just transactional. I need my coffee fix before I go to the office and deal with people I fucking hate. Mm-hmm. And then you'll have the other ones, which are a community building, health focused play. Like, they'll just be very intentional niche opportunities that your identity is bound to. Mm-hmm. And then that's who you buy into. Mm-hmm. And I think the Starbuckses of the world, Starbucks was that. Mm-hmm. Starbucks lost that. Mm-hmm. And Starbucks needs to bring that vision back. And it needs to decide if it's a comfortable experience, if it's a custom experience, or if it's a transactional experience. Mm-hmm. It has to pick one. Mm-hmm. It can't be all. Mm-hmm. Unless, well, they have the money to be all. That, like, if they're smart about it, I have a plan for what I'd do with them, but I do both. Mm-hmm. I'd make a premium experience. They have one already. It's called Reserved or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. They have this Reserve experience, which is a premium, more of a restaurant vibe model. And then I would build hole in the wall, facing outwards, tiny space, back of house, 50 baristas, churning.
Epic.
And you just drive through, pick up your shit and go. Mm-hmm. In LA, you drive because no one walks here.
No, you're a weirdo if you walk here.
But elsewhere, it's just this straight, and everything's customized. Whatever you want. You want the sprinkles, you want the whatever. All customized, everything, and it's just a churn and burn approach, and it's back of house.
It's a great idea. What's the name of the company?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying Starbucks should do.
Oh, that's what you're saying Starbucks should do.
Starbucks should have 2 products.
Okay,
Express, Reserved. Reserved, premium, walk in, sit down, laptop vibe, and then customized beans from wherever. Yeah. A more premium experience.
Watch them do exactly this. We'll settle for $15 million.
But then that's what I would do if I was them.
Yeah.
I would just separate the two products, stop trying to be custom in a private chill environment and stop trying to be chill in a custom environment. They're different things.
Wow. Let's see where it goes, huh?
Yeah. It's 12 months from now, we'll see this in the world and realize we gave away $22 million of value in a short period of time. Someone from Starbucks will listen to this.
100%. Oh man.
But yeah, I think Starbucks is a fascinating case study in business, and I think that they need a bit of a shake-up.
Yeah, I had heard that they intentionally misspelt names too, by the way.
Yeah?
Like they encourage their baristas to intentionally misspell names because 99% of people immediately go to social media, take a picture of it, and they're like, okay, that was close enough, but like you completely butchered my name, you know? And that's
stuff,
just more...
Just like, and those things are great, but you got to get the fundamentals right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like another company that does that very well was, wasn't Tinder, it was another dating app. Another dating app did it. I think they started in the UK, and they did a lot of like experiential work.
Remember when we found out that they were all owned by Match.com?
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's wild, right?
Bruh.
Crazy.
That's the craziest shit ever, man. Oh my God. Wow.
But yeah, so, but I'm fascinated by Starbucks. I wish them well, but I just don't think you can overcome this hump.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. So now we move to DistroKid.
Oh, you blew my mind with this one this week.
Yeah. So again, completely unproven. I would never have spoken to someone in the business that knows anything. But let's assume I did or didn't, whichever one you want to know.
We do not have an inside source. For those who don't know, DistroKid is a platform where independent artists go and they can upload their music that gets distributed to the DSPs of the world, the Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, all of the above for a set annual fee. And there's basically tier structures in where you could do it as an independent artist for one artist, or they charge you a little bit more. And then you pay this reoccurring annual fee to keep your music live and published in the stores. And there's been a lot of shit around them over the years of like payouts and whatnot, but we don't have to get into that. But deliver this crazy news because this was fucking crazy.
So basically, DistroKid, they have like 30 to 40% of the market share. Like 40% of the market that's released, of music that's released in today's landscape,
30 to 40%
is done through DistroKid.
Jesus Christ.
DistroKid's like the OG.
Bro, that's a lot.
Yeah, they're the original gangster in the room.
Yeah.
Because
there was CD Baby and TuneCore and the other competitors who just never got the market share that they did.
They've always been quietly vocal whenever a distributor sold like an AWOL or something like that. They've been like, see?
Which was originally a Cobalt venture.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got all these like different... Like it's always been the safe haven of the music industry in a lot of ways. It's always been like the independent rock.
Yeah. Also great branding. That name is brilliant.
100%.
Yeah.
So like you've got, it's been a staple in the space for a while, and it's been pretty much out of the public eye and not often. Like there was an article back in 2023 about there being a class action lawsuit against them for, I think it was for takedown requests, saying that they weren't honoring takedown requests in a timely manner. This was a class action lawsuit. But that's pretty much the only time I'd seen or heard of them in the music news cycle.
Yeah,
they sort of slide under the radar as a giant, you know. But last week came out that 37 of their key stuff, I can't remember the exact terminology that was used, but they're kind of like a body that is appointed by the team to be like a quality control team. Ethical something. There's like 37 of them. And then the day before the most recent board meeting, all of them were put on administrative leave.
Interesting.
And hypothetically, if I was a guessing guy, I would assume the only reason why you would be intrigued by cutting your operational costs would be to up the multiple that you can sell your company for.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. But
it's a pretty
right.
safe assumption.
So you're now talking about the biggest independent asset on the market maybe being up for sale.
God damn it, HYBE, is it you again?
So like,
is HYBE going to buy them out? Imagine.
I don't know. Like, I can't think of anyone that's got enough money unless it starts with uni and ends with versal, that could afford to do it.
Yeah.
Like to acquire 40% of modern releases, I don't know who's got that cash.
Wow.
You know?
So DistroKid hypothetically is positioning themselves for acquisition.
Hypothetically. And when I say, I actually mean hypothetically, like I don't know. They could just be looking to cut costs and leverage AI within their company to handle the customer service tickets. Or they could be looking to drop their
operational
expense
costs
line to sell.
Yeah, to raise the multiple over a couple months. They wait 3 to 6 months max to make sure that those cuts take effect and actually show. They raise the multiple and valuation of the company because of the net profits and net income operations. And then they've now positioned themselves for a very, very, very lucrative exit.
And then now you go down the deeper rabbit hole of, okay, let's assume that Universal's the only one that could acquire it. So if that's the case, then they acquire it, and Universal does not do discovery mode. So now you have 40% of the industry unable to acquire discovery mode. So you're just going to have this...
Oh, so then they've monopolized it again.
Stagnation of everything.
Yeah.
Now there's another theory, potentially, maybe, that TikTok could think about buying it. Because ByteDance would have the cash to be able to do it. But I struggle to understand the complexities around that, especially with the American side. I just think the TikTok's not thinking about buying anything.
No, they're thinking about surviving.
Yeah, exactly. So I think once they overcome that hurdle, then they may address it. But I can't see a benefit of any other company acquiring DistroKid.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of other...
Wherever that settles, though, is going to have massive ripple effects.
Either way, even if it's just a cutting of an administrative cost and a reduction in customer service on a platform that already receives pretty heavy criticism for pretty poor customer service across its catalog.
And payouts.
And payout issues and stuff. That's like the only reason why you would take that PR hit is because you don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, and it's just a boatload of cash.
Yeah, so that's probably, but who knows?
And it's not one of those DistroKid's not necessarily one of those front-facing entities where like you're aware of the Elliot Granges of the world who are put in CEO-based positions or anybody else who really is like the identifiable person behind these entities. Like people just think of DistroKid as an all-encompassing
100%
brand. Like no one fucking cares who's... or has really been made aware of who's behind these companies or what it is. So like it's quite difficult to turn down like tens of billions of dollars when you've built an entity
100%.
up over 10, 15 years, you know?
Especially right now, we're the only other sort of larger distribution player that's probably getting offers. And I think I even saw in an interview the other day, he told everyone to stop hitting him up, was the guy who owns Empire. He's the only one in the interview recently. Yeah, he's like, stop calling me. I'm not selling. So if you're looking at that now and you know that major labels are looking to make that acquisition of distribution, independent distribution. Yeah. But just think about like you have... hypothetically 40% of people that are like fuck major labels overnight they're now part of a major label.
That's how the game
like
works.
The irony
man.
of this thing is
how
insane.
the game works, man.
So
that goes back and reiterates all the emphasis that you and I continuously place, sounding like a broken record episode by episode, of stressing the importance of independent prowess and self-empowerment,
100%.
Self-education, being resourceful, utilizing your resources, recognizing what it is to position yourself as a player, because at the end of the day, it comes down to shit like this, man. Like if you don't play ball, they force you to play ball. One way or another, they end up acquiring this shit. So focus on commanding that fucking community and building it up as much as you possibly can, and find these outlets with the sync stuff we spoke about last episode. All this stuff that just like, man, I can't stress it enough. Independence is the game. It is the game, man.
100%. And I think the last kind of story floating around the news cycles at the moment is this Merlin situation. Have we talked about this yet?
No.
So
the what situation?
Merlin.
Okay.
So Merlin, so everyone's aware of the Universal TikTok war that took place recently for the licensing situation.
Yeah, and all the songs were removed off the platform for a fair while, much longer than I thought it would go 100%. On for.
Much to my pain and frustration. My record label's through Virgin. Virgin is through Universal. Yay. Super fun. So we dealt with that issue. Finally, it's over, thank God. But it was painful. Merlin, who is kind of like an independent union, Like they're a distribution partner mainly for B2B, so they work with other distributors that are remaining independent. They are going through their licensing war right now. And probably my least favorite distribution partner, I'm feeling a bit saucy today. I despise United Masters. I think their service is trash. I think the way that they manipulate, especially artists in the hip hop space that don't know any better, is garbage. Some of their deal structures are awful. Just have very little to no respect for them at all. And they came out, they were a part of Merlin, and they threw Merlin under the bus and signed their own distribution, their own licensing agreement with TikTok directly, and then removed the leverage that Merlin would have had for the body and industry body for independent artists.
Wow, that's an awkward reunion dinner.
So then you sit there now and you're going, United Masters, you sit there and you preach independence and you preach the importance of, everyone holding their own catalog, unless it's not with you.
Yeah.
Unless you give me my 10%.
Yeah.
And now Merlin's in a situation where it's trying to negotiate its deal. And then just yesterday, Ditto came out and said, we have to sign something now as well. So now you've got this Merlin fragmentation. So all off the back of United Masters making this decision. So
holy shit. I'm surprised I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a... United Masters is really good at this.
Yeah.
She can tell I love them.
Yeah. Big fan.
But I just think that the only thing they've ever done is get someone on an NBA 2K cover.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Shots fired.
No, I think it's just that what I often struggle with distribution outlets is where I respect DistroKid a lot is it's a fixed fee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a fixed fee.
Yeah.
And they're clear on what they are and they're clear on what they're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you look at the other people in that space, the Nvidias, those types of players, when you start taking the United Masters, when you start taking the percentage on the back of a software that doesn't have any real other offering involved, I think that's when it gets a little tough.
Yeah, especially when you're hit with that prompt when you're uploading music where the publishing situation comes up and they're like, do you want to sign over your publishing to this situation or have us collect 50%, whatever. And most artists are so uninformed that I've had multiple instances of young artists who have asked me after they've clicked the agreement to say that, take half of it, take this, take that, for uploading your fucking song.
Yeah.
They just now cut out the representation of people that are actually worthy of receiving that publishing thing just for acting as a mechanism to get your song out into the world. Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
I don't know. I think my frustration mostly with the independent landscape is people that cry the importance of it, but then punish you for not being independent with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're either a supporter of the independent movement, or you're not.
Yeah.
And I think when we launched our label, the intention behind it was ultimately to build something that didn't think it was being a part of the solution, because the minute you become part of the solution, inherently you become part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what happened there. I think United Masters started with good intentions, and then in the race to the top, they became part of the problem
and lost some of their ethical approach.
And do I think that they're as bad as other people in the space? No. But do I think the scale that they move at impacts a lot of artists and puts them in an uncomfortable situation? Yes. And honestly, some of the best marketing I've seen from anyone full stop in the music industry comes from them. They are so good at positioning extra services and value that's disguised in
yeah, I've had a lot of experience with them myself.
They're marketing geniuses.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that holds its weight in gold.
And really I'm coming from a place of jealousy in some ways of their ability to market. It's very impressive, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that especially the Merlin situation, should they have probably solved this a little earlier?
Yeah.
Yes, but I also can't imagine TikTok's that easy to negotiate with.
Yeah.
And the minute they can feel the fragmentation taking place, they're like, we got this.
Yeah.
Let's take United Masters over, do our own independent deal with them, And I get it from United Masters' perspective because they're sitting there like, if Merlin falls, right, we've now got thousands of artists underneath our infrastructure that are on monthly subscriptions. That if they can't post on TikTok, which is pretty much the only piece of advice that we've had for them for the last 6 months. Then they're now saying we can't post, you can't do the thing that you told us to do to grow our music. So we'll go somewhere else. And then those subscriptions leave. So I understand, but I think at some point you've got to hold the union that supported you up till that point and allowed you to become who you are.
Wow. What an interesting turn of events. That's crazy. I mean, there's so many layers and facets to how all this shit really works that like more often times than not, like the average consumer is so unaware of what is actually going on. And it's just a random jump, but it reminds me of an instance of like the big tobacco companies even. Do you remember those like anti-smoking commercials that always had like the orange and white theme? I'm like blanking on what they were called now, but they were known for being like the craziest commercials always. Like 90 some odd % of people are unaware that those commercials were funded by the big tobacco companies just because of legislation that forced them to do that. So they were required and forced to put out the anti-smoking advertisements that they would spend billions of dollars on, right? And where is all that stuff gone? Because they changed certain legislation and laws and rules that they aren't required to do it in the manner that they once were. So they don't have to do the anti-smoking campaigns. There's different spectrums of media and print that they're allowed to push them through, right? So it doesn't have that viral effect of what it is. And then they all know that the conversions have now happened to them buying into these vape companies and doing what it is, where there was a ban that happened, especially in California. I'm not too certain about the rest of the country, where they removed like the addictive, what tends to be the more addictive flavors, which is like the fruity ones, the flavorful ones, that you can't sell those products anymore. Okay. Walk into a smoke shop 5 feet away from here and you'll see them all over the walls.
100%.
Like no enforcement of any part of that 100%. Anywhere. Like, or you go into a couple of these local smoke shops where like you give the guy a look acting like you've been there before, and in the back room they have the wall full of them. It's like the whole shit in every regard of industry period is just so snaky that this type of shit doesn't surprise me, man. When you're saying that you've had these instances of recognizing what the unethical approaches are or whatnot, like the people who are selling you the anti-smoking campaigns are the ones that are putting cigarettes in your hands. You understand? And then because of different jurisdictions and this and that, they're selling it for $15 to $20 a pack over here in this city, then selling it for $12 a pack in this city. And it's like they just get it where they can. And unfortunately, you know, it's capitalism at its finest, where we just live in the day and age and a country in which the bottom line is the most important thing. Facts. And companies that I've witnessed, you've witnessed, if they make $100 million this year, they have to make $101 million next year. And they will do whatever it is that they have to do in order to make sure that they reach that benchmark, because they lose the valuation. If it becomes a publicly traded entity, there's a board of advisors that are put in place who could remove the original founders from the basis of the company and the foundation 100%. Of the company. So you come into something and you build $100 million company, billion-dollar company, and then because your sales dip by 3% on a rough quarter, like your ass is out. So it's like that definitely is the conviction that comes into play with a lot of these situations and why they're forced to make the moves that they do. And more often than not, they just look at the consumer as part of their statistic and bottom line, and they really don't give a shit. That's why we've seen such a shift in consciousness in regards to what the younger generation is willing to support, the companies that they're willing to get behind, that at least do a good enough job of making it seem like they put the customer first. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to profits. So if they're able to convince their customer that, hey, we're on your side and we're here to save the whales or take the plastic out of the ocean or do whatever the fuck it is that they claim to do, like, we already know how that works.
100%. And I think the last thing on my mind for this episode was just the total, the zoom out look of the entertainment industry as a whole, and sort of where we sort of
transitional state,
and the fact that, you know, we're just it just feels like everyone that I meet with who's starting a superfan platform or a distribution outlet is just here to disrupt.
Yeah.
And they're here to move fast and break things.
Yeah.
And I think we should probably be smart about that and look at what's happening in the film industry. And I think Netflix came in and moved fast and broke things early and really kind of broke things.
Yeah. But are those sustainable models? You know, like it's one of those things where after 260 million active paying subscribers who now off the median price through different markets, you have them paying $12.99 a month, like is not sustainable for the amount of content that you have to pump and push out. And then the valuation of your company fluctuates up and down because of quarterly earnings and reports and whatnot. Are these sustainable business models? Like even in regards to music, like should you have made all the music free for $9.99 a month where you pay a small premium and then you have access to billions of songs? Like, is this all sustainable? We'll see where it goes. But there's definitely going to have to be some type of a pullback and collapse, and we'll see what ultimately becomes the blockbusters of this generation, where the next iteration of something that comes just shows that the business model was flawed because it was one degree of separation of delivery to the consumer.
100%. And I think it's a software hardware race. It's right now it's very difficult to create something different on existing hardware. Yeah. But once that hardware shift happens, which I think is inevitable, I think the reason why I'm more bullish now on a hardware change is this is fucked.
Yeah, 100%.
Like this form and function is reached the end of its cycle.
Yeah, absolutely it has. I couldn't agree more.
Even this last round made me just realize, damn.
I mean, Apple, we talked about it a few episodes ago. The Apple intelligence and delivery was so fucking whack. You could go back a couple episodes and hear everything.
I just tried to use Siri today just to give it another shot, and I was like, nah, it's gonna sit on the shelf for another 3 years.
It's so shocking.
But I think that whenever you see the decline, the rapid growth stop, and hit the brakes, and instead of going 100 kilometers an hour, we've now pulled back to 5. That's when you start to see a form function change. Yeah,
and just follow the money. Like the big companies, the Alphabets of the world and whatnot, Google, etc. They're investing tens of billions of dollars into either reopening or building new fucking nuclear reactors in order to keep up with the energy consumption basis of AI and large language models. So it's the .com boom all over again, and we're basically in 1999 again with all these services popping 100%. Up that are anything that you label AI right now. Anything that you label AI right now, people are going to click and be intrigued by. It could be a service that you offer that fucking summarizes pet names and you call it AI basis for figuring out the best name, what to call your dog off of its breed and this and that, and you'll convince a good amount of people to come and pay you $19.99 a month and somehow convince them that it's a good service because they think it's cutting edge. Facts. Because it's just a rebrand and reapproach of the situation, right? But in happy news is the last thing is just like a 5-second clip to put in there. The EU announced that greenhouse emissions are down 8% from last year, which is progress in the right way because we're totally fucked and way overdue for what it is. But also we know that the Earth goes through its global cool up and heat down cycles. So it's a little bit more exaggerated than what it is. But I thought that was interesting and thought people might want to end off on a good note.
And I think it's a strong thing to bring up because I think it's it shows it can be done. Yeah. And I think now it's pointing the finger at some larger emissions countries
absolutely
around the world I think that need to regulate, and I think there needs to be a governing body across
without it being a detriment to your everyday quality of life.
But I think to show that it is doable, and I think that's always step one, and I think it's the first step. Like, no, someone can do it, which means we can all do it. It's absolutely. Like when someone runs a 20-kilometer race at a record speed. It's not long till someone runs that faster.
Even if it's by a few seconds.
100%. It's once someone shows you can do it.
So progress is being made. There's always a silver lining. There's always hope for the future. And I think that we're a species by nature that we rise to the task and perform best when our backs are against the wall. It's just 100%. It's just human nature, whether it's, based on the level of productivity, whether it's how you are and how you deliver things, like you may wait till the last minute to get something done and do this and do that, but you do it to the best of your ability. I'm blanking on the word. I don't know why I'm blanking on the word.
Procrastination.
Thank you. You're a procrastinator. You know what I mean? Procrastination.
Procrastinating on the word procrastination.
Exactly. I was like, why do I not know this word right now? But essentially, that's how we all behave and behave the best. So I have full faith in what the turn of the tide is going to be. And I think this younger generation is absolutely fucking brilliant in the manner of what they're discovering, the things that they're bringing to the forefront. So it's going to be an interesting conversation in the near future of where that's all headed. And you're the greatest co-host in the world.
Likewise.
I appreciate you, brother. It's such a pleasure to have you in the flesh. I've really been enjoying this, and I'm excited for us to keep this going. And God bless you, bro. Great topics today, man.
Let's do it.
Cheers.